How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Down Podcast, the show where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Today, we are back with a little bit more of a simplified video. We're going to be discussing our final thoughts and takeaways after the Bears closed out their preseason with a 27-24 win over the Tennessee Titans. What did Justin Fields show us in his first 3 games of action? We're going to be talking about the roster bubble as well as our overall thoughts heading into the 2021-22 regular season. Before I get into this one, I would like to say you guys have been absolutely crushing it recently with the support. I don't even know why I'm shocked anymore. You guys just keep coming back, and we appreciate it and keep trying to get videos out for you guys as much as possible. So if you are new to the channel or wherever you are listening, do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe, follow, and we're going to be posting the most comprehensive Bears coverage on the web throughout the entire season. I am your host, Chris Maltby, today to talk about takeaways from the preseason. I am joined with both of my co-hosts, Parth and Jaylen McClinton. Guys, been a while since we've done this together, but what's going on? How you guys been? Parth, you're muted, sir.
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm doing pretty good. A little tired. It's a Sunday, so just trying to get all the schoolwork done before this week starts. And had a little busy weekend. The game was fun to watch, definitely. Saturday night, we saw Justin Fields at least play a couple, let's say, decent drives. Had that one great throw. We'll talk about it more, but there's a lot to talk about these 3 games in preseason. It's a little bit weird not having a 4th game, but it's always nice to just get straight into the season. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, other than that, not so much.
Yeah, Jaylen, what's going on, man? How have you been?
It's been going good for me. The Sox have been playing well lately. Put up 13 runs on the Cubs, and it was basically a football game the other night. What was that, on Friday?
17-13, yeah.
That's a football game. That's a Bears football game.
So,
and the Bears are the ones scoring 13.
Yeah, probably. Football is the end of preseason. We got to watch just. I know we'll talk about it more, but football is 2 weeks away, and can't be more excited to get back to whirling with recording and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been super busy recently. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to start pre-recording videos again soon, and we talked about that in previous episodes. But work's going well. Had 4-hour practice today, 4-hour practice yesterday, and the heat in southern Indiana right now is just ridiculous. Parth can attest. It feels like 100 degrees right now, so my body is in a lot of pain. But you know what? We live and we learn. And I'm excited to get back into covering the Bears. Preseason's over. We're finally inching closer and closer to the 2021 season. I say it always. It's kind of my tagline now, but there's no better spot to start than here when it comes to recapping the preseason. Obviously, this Bears preseason had a lot of hype around it for a lot of reasons, a lot of players that a lot of fans wanted to see. Rodney Adams, Jesse James, Jesper Horsted. Only a couple of names that are going to be mentioned throughout this episode, but obviously it all circled around Justin Fields. So, Parth, I'm going to start with you. We haven't really done post-game shows this preseason and missed our last pregame show. So we haven't really gotten to talk about our thoughts much from what we saw, but from what you saw out of Justin Fields, specifically in the game against the Dolphins and then last night against the Titans. I mean, the Bills game was kind of a little bit of a crapshoot, but what has Justin Fields shown you this preseason?
He's shown me that he's improving each and every single day of the week. That's for sure. One thing that you look at is the improvements throughout the quarter. The first preseason game he struggled early on in the game, and as time went on, he found his groove and got better, which is something that is very important in quarterbacks, to be able to make that switch, to learn from what the defense is giving you. I feel like he's someone who's getting better at that as the day goes on. And obviously, he's got the speed and the running out of the pocket ability, the ability to throw out the run. Those are some of his fantastic traits that have translated amazingly well to the NFL. We saw that yesterday. That he had that great throw to Jesper Horsted at the end zone. A lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League did not make that throw. It was triple coverage. He was on, and he went to his right, with no feet planted, and he threw an absolute dime in the end zone. These are just some things that he naturally has and naturally can do. But some things he has added are the pre-snap movements, the things he's learning, all those small little things that we don't really see as much, but on the inside they definitely see it. And those are some things that I feel like as a player he definitely is improving. He will keep improving as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think, taking a look back at what he's shown me, I mean, obviously this preseason's kind of flown by, and he's only played in 6 quarters, so it's kind of hard to evaluate. First and foremost, I mean, Justin Fields showed me what I already knew about Justin Fields in terms of him being the guy who can extend plays, who has the talented arm, who can scramble, who's a dual threat quarterback. He showed me all that, but I had a really good feeling that we were going to see that. I think the most important thing he showed me is that he's ready for the big stage, and he's adjusted to the speed of the NFL. So whenever the Bears need him, he will be ready. We saw him continuously get quicker at the line of scrimmage, making audibles, calling out linebackers who are blitzing. He's adjusted to the actual speed of the game, which is nice. Obviously, we can talk here all day about the talented arm and everything else we've seen from him, but he's exactly what I expected, and he showed me exactly what I expected. The ability to extend plays, the Bears' offensive play calling and also offensive line has been porous so far, at least throughout this preseason, and Justin Fields has shown me that even when all else is going wrong, he can still make plays and use his legs and be the playmaker that Chicago needs. So it's short and sweet, but Justin Fields showed me that he's adjusted to the NFL speed and that he's what the Bears need, because someone like Mitchell Trubisky was not doing this. Same goes for Nick Foles. So, Jaylen, before we move on to some more interesting preseason content, what has Justin Fields shown you? Obviously, we were at the Week 1 game, but all in all, you've seen 6 quarters worth of Justin Fields playing. What has he shown you?
That, like you said, he can be our starting quarterback. I think we all kind of knew that. Obviously, we want to see it in live action, not just in practice or from watching him go up against college players. But he showed us that he can obviously come in right now and be a serviceable quarterback for us. I'm not saying he's going to come in and throw 3 touchdowns a game and be an MVP type quarterback in his rookie year. No, but I think he can play well enough for us to win games. I think we have a solid offensive pieces around him. I know that offensive line is still iffy for us. We definitely need to see some improvements, but this defense is still very good. I know it's the preseason, but it was mainly backups, but we were still getting a decent amount of turnovers in the 3 games we played. So Justin showed, like I said, Justin showed me that he can be our starting quarterback. Now, obviously we're not going to see Week 1, but will we see it Week 2, Week 3, Week 4? We won't know, but that's definitely what he showed me, the D-ball accuracy and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Justin Fields showed all of us exactly what we were expecting that was going to come. But now let's get into some more nitty-gritty. Let's get into the gravy here, I guess you could say, of the preseason content. Let's talk about the roster bubble a little bit, because obviously while all eyes throughout training camp, OTAs, minicamp have been on Justin Fields, we've still watched a lot of other players show out in the preseason and prove that they maybe deserve to be on this 53-man roster. So let's go around the carousel here and each share at least a couple players that we think should make this team, that I guess changed our perspectives on them this offseason. I'll start first. Number 1, and I've been clamoring about him on Twitter the entire offseason, even before he made a play in the preseason. It has to be Rodney Adams. He's a big playmaker. He's got a great catch radius. He can go up and get it wherever you put it. And I think he's what the Bears were looking for in Javon Wims, that they weren't able to actually get out of Javon Wims. So we saw Wims get cut earlier this week. Rodney Adams, I would think, hopefully will fall into wide receiver 5 spot on this roster. Should be interesting to see how that plays out with Riley Ridley, but he's someone who I definitely would expect would make this Bears roster. Next, I think I'm going to go for, Jesse James obviously is an obvious one. He surprised me, but he was going to make the roster anyways. Jesper Horsted, I think, deserves it, just to be obviously the tight end 4 that the Bears are looking for. We saw him have 3 touchdowns last night. He's made athletic grabs throughout training camp and showed it last night where he had a one-handed grab, and then he ran about 30 yards upfield for a touchdown after. I think if the Bears give him opportunities, he's been around for a while and we've liked him for a while, but I still definitely think that he should be on this 53-man roster and proved himself this preseason. And then I'll give you maybe one or two on defense. I think Charles Snowden should be a lock for the practice squad. If he isn't picked up by another team, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get the opportunity to be on the 53-man roster, but he has gotten some solid pressure. And then someone else who showed out last night who got 2 quarterback hits and also had a ton of quarterback pressures, who's been pretty solid throughout this preseason, Trevis Gibson, someone who, in my mind, was a big question mark heading into this preseason. We hadn't seen much from him. In fact, most of what we'd seen out of him had been unproductive. So I'm going to go with Trevis Gibson to close it out. But those are my couple of players. If I had to pick, hand select a couple few that should make this roster. Jaylen, I'm going to go to you next because you're now in the middle of the production.
This never happens. I'm excited.
But any roster bubble players that you think should make the team? Anyone kind of switch your perspective on them as this offseason continued?
I'm not gonna say Jesper because I feel like Jesper should have, been made to the roster like since last season. Obviously, we signed Jimmy Graham and kept him on this roster, so he was a roster bubble type player. But I think after yesterday's game, like you said, he's locked in that spot as our 4th tight end with him and Jesse James and obviously Cole and Jimmy. But I was gonna say Charles Snowden. I didn't think anybody else was gonna think about him. But no, you just have to steal him. I definitely feel like
I'm
he
on
has
top
a lot
of this, man. You see me blowing up on Twitter. I'm all over this stuff nowadays.
Yeah, you're Mr. Famous now. But
not famous at all, but finally maybe got a little bit of Bears notoriety.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, Charles Snowden, he definitely showed a lot of high upside. A guy that a lot of draft experts didn't think was going to go undrafted, but he had a late ankle injury late in the draft, early in the draft process that made him fall there. But he's 6'7". Obviously, for him to be more dominant in the league or even serviceable, probably needs to put on a lot of more muscle. But he showed that he's a very fast guy. Off the ball, and I definitely think he can make this roster. Like you said, a practice squad type player. But I wouldn't be surprised if he got one of those last outside linebacker spots.
If he doesn't make the 53-man, I feel like that's why I said I feel like he should be a lock for the practice squad if no other team picks him up. He's going to be an interesting one just because of the Bears' depth on defense, but if we can keep him around, I definitely think they should one way or another.
Yeah, Caleb Johnson as well. A lot of guys was always around the ball. I think he had like not 3/4 fumbles, but I think he had 3 fumble recoveries in the 3 games he played. Two last week against Buffalo. So I think he can definitely be taking one of those spots over Josh Woods. I definitely feel like he definitely showed more in the preseason. And a guy like Troy Robertson, a person we signed out of Canada last season, he got hurt. Practicing outside of the Bears and was put on the NFI list last year and, had a pick 6 yesterday. I seen he had a concussion, so, that sucks for him, but I definitely feel like he's another guy that can make this roster. And that's about it. Guys like John Vea Johnson, I know he was showing out in training camp, but he didn't really get a chance.
He didn't do much in the game.
Yeah,
so.
That's why this is just such a tough discrepancy to have because there's so many players that could go one way or another. Mm-hmm. And we also got to realize, I'm not sure, I think what are the Bears at right now? 70 players, 75, something like that.
75.
Yeah, they've got some significant cuts to make. I mean, they've got to cut 23 guys. And there's some interesting ones that we could sit here and talk about all day, like Radley Ridley, someone who looked better than he has in previous years, but was still inconsistent. I mean, there's so many guys that we could go back and forth on. But Parth, anyone else that we haven't mentioned already, any players that you formerly thought were roster bubble guys that you think now should make the team?
I feel like you guys hit the hay on most of these guys. I mean, Jesper Horsted definitely proved his case to become the tight end 4. I feel like
Bear Down Podcast is Rodney Adams stands.
Yeah, Chris Maltby definitely is. That's for sure.
Definitely.
He loves Rodney Adams, but I do too. I think he's gonna be a great receiver for the Bears. I think he makes the team as well. I'm excited to see what Jesse James has to offer. I think that dude can shoot up the depth chart and surprise a lot of Bears fans with how much value he adds to this offense.
Yeah, Jesse James is an interesting one. I mean, he was probably a lock to make the roster when he got here. A couple other interesting ones before we move on, just to our thoughts before the season starts. Alec Ogletree, I think, should make the roster.
He didn't even play yesterday, so I think that shows.
Yeah.
He's a lock.
Christian Jones is going to be an interesting one, man. Former Bear, he was
Him and
like
Josh Woods
at
will be
camp,
interesting.
and yeah, there's a lot of familiar faces that might be on the chopping block.
Buniway's
Yeah.
on the a lot of guys.
I think Justin Fields is a lock to make this roster too. I like what he's from the preseason.
That is a good point, and that's
about
probably
Nick
the best
Foles?
point that has been brought up this entire podcast. So let's move on to our final thoughts. Obviously, this has been one of the most intriguing Bears preseasons in quite some time. I think I paid more attention than I ever have, except for when Mitchell Trubisky obviously got his opportunities back when he was slinging balls to slinging balls to Victor Cruz. But I mean, obviously, we know what the Bears are going into the season with. We don't know when we're going to see Justin Fields. That's obviously going to be the big domino that's going to fall at some point. Will it be week 4? Will it be week 2? Will it be week 8? Will it not be until 2022? That's going to be really important. So based on what you see from the Bears right now, Jaylen, Andy Dalton leading the troops, we know this defense has depth. We like what they have on offense with the wide receivers. The tight end group is coming back and looking strong. We added 2 wide receivers in Bird and Godwin. How do you feel about the Chicago Bears heading into the 2021 season?
If you would have asked Bears fans, last week after we got blown out by the Buffalo Bills, they would say we're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think that's little bit of an overreaction. But I want to see us get out to more of an offensive rhythm. Like I think every single game we had a 3-and-out on our first couple offensive possessions.
This has been the tail of the tape since we started covering the Bears,
and that can't happen. That can't happen.
No, it can't because we're just it's mediocre and it's putting too much on the defense.
I want to see more from this offensive line. Offensive line was struggling against backups all preseason long. Obviously, we this was our first time actually having a healthy, full starting offensive line. So once they get more reps together, I think I wouldn't say they'll be serviceable, but just below average. And tackling on defense, the tackling has been terrible this whole preseason. So I definitely want to see stuff more about that. But the one thing I'm not worried about is this defense. The defense, especially when it comes to the front seven, from the starters to the backups, we were getting a lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and I guess that will help us, be more feel more okay with the nickel back and the number 2 behind Jaylen. But other than that, definitely a lot of stuff we need to work on going into the regular season. But we have 2 weeks to do that. We'll still see a lot of players coming in and out. We'll see if we can acquire someone on the waiver wire. But that's definitely my final thoughts.
Yeah, I have to harp on what you're saying about the offense, especially the offensive line. I think the talent is there. When you look at the skill positions, I do think the Bears have enough talent to be a successful team. The offensive line's a big one. The pressure just can't be bad, whether it's Dalton this season, whether it's Fields this season, or whether the Bears go with something like the Miami Dolphins did last year where you're switching between 2 quarterbacks. If the pressure's not constant, you don't give your quarterback time to throw, you're not going to be able to get the ball to your receiver or whoever it's going to be. I think there's a couple disciplinary issues that we've seen for a while now that still haven't been patched up. The tackling and hustle on defense, there's been a lot of penalties, but you know what? It's going to be a tough year for the Bears this year. I've tried to always be down to earth and not be a homer. The Bears have the 3rd toughest strength of schedule in the league, and that's why I continue to say how important it is that Justin Fields comes in and plays, because we haven't really seen him play with the ones outside of maybe a couple snaps in camp and in that preseason game here and there. But he's going to be the X factor for how Chicago does this season if and when he gets a chance. I think Dalton will be okay, maybe a little bit better than Trubisky and Foles last year. I don't know what to think about that at this point, but I'm looking forward to eventually seeing Justin Fields at some point. I'm feeling all right, but I have no reason to believe that this season isn't going to be exactly like last season, 8-9, 9-8, something like that. It's a tough schedule, man, and the National Football League is a business, and there are a lot of good teams in this business, so it's going to be a tough one for the Bears. But Parth, before we sign off, any last thoughts on the preseason at all? Anything you want to add? How are you feeling heading into this season here 2 weeks away? You are muted, my friend. You do this all the time. Dude, you do this all the time. You think you're muted, and then you weren't muted.
I mute myself because the house gets loud, and then I want to I don't want any background noise to get
Did y'all
added.
just, I know, but did you just hear that thunder?
That's not thunder.
No, I didn't
There's
hear
no
thunder.
Bro,
Okay, Parth. Okay.
That was
All right,
thunder.
anyways, going into season, I'm excited for sure. Obviously, there's a lot of positives on the offensive side of the ball, starting with Fields, Robinson, Mooney, Montgomery, but the offensive line, like you guys said, is obviously in question. But when they're healthy, I think this offense is going to be deadly this year. I think there's a lot of weapons to not be, scared of about this offense. You guys Jaylen especially did seem confident in his defense. However, I am a little bit less.
What are
confident.
you doing what are you doing? Are you bending over? What are you doing?
Oh no, I just dropped my phone. That's why. I was gonna say I'm less confident in this defense.
We are all over the place today.
I was gonna just say that I'm less confident in this defense. I just feel like the cornerback situation has been a little bit iffy this offseason, especially with Artie Burns currently listed as the cornerback 2 of the team. That is something I don't want to see heading into the season, whether that is Kevin Talu, not even Kevin Talu. He's not even on the team. Where am I?
Dude, you need to go to sleep or something, man.
I was just gonna say
Are you sleep deprived? Are you sleep deprived, man?
To step in and be the number 2, but he got a cut last season. So.
Dude, he should be the number 2 right now.
No, stop.
Exactly. I agree with Parth.
All right, we're gonna close
a whole other conversation.
We're gonna close
but
off.
The Bears definitely have a hole at the secondary position. I feel like, and also
he just muted himself again. My goodness gracious! All right, we're closing off with that. You heard enough of what Parth had to say. His mic's great. Whatever. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our final preseason thoughts. Kind of a little bit of an impromptu video that makes sense as Parth continues to fiddle with his microphone, and I'm trying not to laugh here. But if you want more content from us, drop a like, subscribe, follow us if you haven't already. We're trying to bring you the most comprehensive Chicago Bears coverage on the web. Speaking of more coverage from us, if you would like it, you can head to the link at the top of the description. That's the link to our website, beardown.com. We're going to get fired back up, posting columns, articles, and blogs to get you guys ready for the 2021-2022 season, kicking off in exactly 14 days. If you would like to find the podcast on Instagram or Twitter, you can find it on both platforms at Bear Down. That's a great spot to enter our giveaways that we do. We try and do them bi-monthly. We're going to be giving away a Justin Fields jersey here soon enough, possibly some game tickets. Looking forward to doing a lot of stuff this fall, giving back to you guys who support us. It's a great way to do that, and also just to interact with us, see our thoughts on certain things that we don't essentially share on here, and also tell us what you want to see on the podcast. Finally, before I sign off, I would like to say you can find the links to all of our personal social media pages down in the description, our Instagram and Twitter pages. It's a great way to keep up with us, see our thoughts on all things Bears, all things Chicago sports, and all things National Football League. And it's also just a great way to interact with us. But Parth, I'm not sure if your mic's even working at this point, but Jaylen, any last words before we sign off?
Bear down. That's it. Bear down.
That's it, man. The calm before the storm. Seriously, Parth, are you alive? Are you here?
I think my mic's working now.
You're quiet, but it's okay.
I was just gonna say, the season's coming up. Bears football is definitely at its peak right now. I feel like we got a long season to come. This team is gonna be fun to watch. Obviously, we're gonna have the ups and downs. The long season does, especially when Matt Nagy's your head coach. But,
yeah. Definitely our bread and butter right now. It's been just with COVID and stuff. I feel like everything's been expanded out, and it seems like it's been so long since the football season. So excited to have it back. We're getting back into the
nice to be back at Soldier Field this year.
Absolutely. Back into the groove of things. But thank you guys once again so much for tuning in. We appreciate your support so much. It's been a pleasure to be your host. Once again, my name is Chris Malpe. And Bears fans, as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll see you in the next one.